Joining me live now is Shadow Housing and Homelessness Minister Andrew Bragg and leading Liberal moderate. Andrew, good to see you. First of all, we got this reporting from Andrew Clennell in the last hour that Anne Ruston has said, well, once again, the Nationals are holding a gun to the Liberals' head. Is that how you see it?
Well, I'm not sure that's necessarily the case, because I think the Nats make some good points in terms of the implementation of the energy policies in Australia, which have led to higher prices, less industry being onshore, and haven't really made a big dent on decarbonisation. So the main point I'd make is that Australia has important treaty obligations. We should maintain those, but we should do net zero better than Labor's done it.
How do you do that?
Well, I think you've got to start with a technology agnostic approach. I'm not sure all the subsidisation is necessary. I think you've got to look at the timetable. You've got to look at what's going to be in, what's going to be out. I mean, for example, in New Zealand, they exempt agriculture. Here I know that the Farmers Federation actually support net zero. So I think you've got to look at how you cut and dice it. The reality is that every country in the G20, apart from one, is in this accord. We're a very trade-exposed nation. You can cut and dice it to cut your own cloth, so to speak. So I think we can do it in a way that suits Australia.
But not all of your Liberal colleagues even believe that to be true. From the reporting that Andrew Clennell's brought us, some want to drop net zero.
Well, I don't think that's the way to go. I think that it's important that Australia shows fidelity to our international obligations. We are a massively trade-exposed nation. Very different from the United States, which has a strong domestic market, and we should try and always maintain our international commitments. And I think it's quite easy, frankly, because the Paris Accord requires you to get to net zero in the second half of this century. So I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that Australia could achieve that. I would say under Labor's plan, we've got no chance of getting there.
Sure, but I mean, let's look at your path back to government. The Nationals have said no to net zero now, but somehow if the Liberals stuck with net zero, you'd be able to work together with some kind of cohesive message to get back into government. Please explain to me how that might work.
Well, my understanding is that they are not seeking to completely repudiate the Paris framework, and I think, as I've said before, that you can get to... Well, you can get to net zero at some stage this century. I mean, I think that's a starting point. And we should be doing things on Australia's terms rather than having them dictated to us. So I don't think that we've exhausted all avenues here. I note the extensive public commentary here shows that there's a very healthy culture within the Liberal national parties where these things are ventilated. And we're in the first year after a very heavy election defeat. So look, none of this really surprises me, to be honest. I guess the question is, can we thread the needle here? And that's what we all want to do.
What's the fair assessment here within the Liberals, the Nationals aside? Is your party divided about the pathway forward on net zero?
Well, I think you know that there is going to be a group of people that will probably never support the idea of having net zero in any form. And that's the reality. But people are entitled to their views. I've given you my view, and my view is that Australia is a serious country. We should show fidelity to our international obligations and commitments, but we should do net zero in a way that suits us, that gets power prices down, that keeps industry onshore, that helps us decarbonise. I think those things are eminently possible.
Andrew, is that the number one reason? Show fidelity to our international commitments because we're a serious country? I mean, that's not something that's going to win an election, right? It's the cost of power. It's the fact that we are not prepared for an AI revolution because we are so preoccupied with meeting those net zero targets. I think that's the point of the Nationals. So you need a full rebrand here, don't you? Even if you do stick with net zero.
That's right. And I think the point is that I'm trying to make to you is we have always been a country that's tried to carry our weight. And my sense of the Australian people is they would expect us to not give up on decarbonisation. They also want lower power prices and they want jobs on shore. And those are all laudable and achievable objectives. And I think we're not a country that gives up. So I think that if you're talking in strictly political terms here, I don't see how anyone thinks they're going to be rewarded from just saying, oh, it's all too hard, we give up. Australia isn't going to do anything.
No, but the Nationals aren't saying that either, are they? They're just moving those targets and they're re-emphasising price and saying, well, actually, we're going to look after our constituents first. We'd love to do it net zero, but we're not going to do it without harming us. What is your view on what the energy mix in a perfect world should look like? The Nationals, is it about 50% renewables? There should be way more gas and maybe even nuclear in the future. Is that a sensible position to take? Because I think that's one that people could understand.
Well, look, I think it was a mistake to have closed the coal earlier than it should have been. I think you could have had more coal for longer, frankly. You should have had more gas. You should have nuclear. I'm for all technologies. I mean, I think it's thoroughly unscientific and ridiculous to say you're against any form of energy if you can do it on the basis that it's going to be reasonably cheap and reasonably clean as part of an overall mix. So, look, I don't think what they're saying is necessarily unreasonable. I think we can work with that. That's my hope. And the point I'm making to you about the international piece is that we are part of an international community. Australians understand that. And as a trading nation, that's well known to regional communities. But I'd also make the point that regional communities have been treated like dirt here in this rollout, whether it be in relation to transmission or whether it be in relation to the creation of new energy infrastructure. So I don't think the points that are being made are necessarily unreasonable, and my hope is that we can work through them.
What's the most important thing here? Maintaining that international obligation or keeping the coalition together?
Well, Australia is not going to completely walk away and repudiate our international obligations. I think that transcends any political or individual interest.
So keeping the coalition together, is that viable right now?
Of course it is. And as I said to you, my hope is that we can thread the needle on this. I mean, the level of public discussion and knowledge of these internal matters is such that there's no real secrets here. Everyone knows what everyone else thinks. And so my point to you is that I would like us to be able to resolve this.
At the moment, isn't it? Because you're not acting like a party, you're acting like a group of individuals.
I think it is messy. It was always going to be messy in this first year after such a heavy defeat. I think we should try and resolve this as soon as possible now, and then we can move on. There will probably always be people that are not going to agree with whatever the final outcome is. I've given you my view. I think that we can balance the competing objectives here, and let's see how we go over the next few weeks.
Yeah, or years. Do you think you can win the next election from where you're at now?
Look, I think right now we are not in a particularly strong position until we resolve this issue, and my view is it should be resolved in the next few weeks.
Few weeks? Should be brought to a head before Christmas?
I mean, clearly this is impacting our ability to hold the government to account. The government is hopeless. It's letting the country down across the board. In the housing portfolio, for example, you're just seeing first home prices increase at the entry-level point at the highest rate in living memory. That means that the government, because they've failed to build houses, has now opened up the demand side of the market and it's shooting up house prices. So that's hurting young people. It's hurting the ability of people to buy their first home. That's on Labor. The fact is that we have orders of the Senate to get the production of the modelling, which I'm sure would have shown that the government knew about this back from July. The government treats the Senate like dirt. And so we'll have to work with the crossbench again to try and embarrass the government into giving the documents that we deserve, that we're working to get on behalf of the Australian people. So there are great matters of state here. The government is hopeless and we need to be able to hold them to account. Clearly it's harder to do so until you resolve these matters.
Yep, you've got a fair few indicators pointing to that direction. Andrew Bragg, good to talk to you this morning. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Laura.